Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The last 6 months we were surprised by the media about jamming, GPS jamming. Jamming is just interference with reception signal. Sometimes it even eliminates the signal. Every week we get information that the air traffic was interfered by jamming. I would like to tell about different consequences of jamming and proofing. I will be talking about advanced IT technologies that are time coordinated. This is a quite old type of knowledge. The first works on synchronization, IT and OT, appeared in 1983. It was initiated by the U.S. Armed Forces. So there is satellite communication for guiding missiles. So the questions were raised: what happens if we interfere with the system, we tamper with the system, and for a specific period of time it will not be usable? During the Persian Gulf War, there was an incident that took lives of several soldiers because of the numeric overload of a processor cell that is responsible for representing time. What does it mean? We are talking about representing numeric representation of time. So it's not about the clocks that inform us what time it is. We are talking about time lapsed. So it's the fourth dimension of the place where we exist. And we are talking about destabilization of the whole critical infrastructure that is based on the information on the time and the flow of time that organizes GNSS. The example that raises fears among specialists is that the way that we make as optimum distribution of energy. We have been popularizing for 2 years with the National Meteorology Authority and the Military Technical Academy how to deal with desynchronization and how it is used to limit the work parameters of IT systems. It all only refers to peripheral devices, but a unique disk matrix control in the cloud is using synchronization at the onset of the system. So interference with the system can prevent a server or the whole server room from operating properly, or it may endanger the whole network of server rooms, or make the server rooms an element of peripheral architecture. So, instead of coordinating their work with railway networks, they do it based on time coordination. So the good news is that the subject that before the war in Ukraine was not really known, or because Poland does not produce much IT equipment. We consuming software or creating software, but the problems that we are dealing with here is about the hardware. the hardware that is based on systemic software. So the operation system are unified with the hardware. So this is the subject of books by Military Technical University, published by Military. So distribution of time and it will be re-edited, the extended version, in order to aid the reconnaissance of satellitary threats. How come that something that it does not explode may destroy the whole critical infrastructure? It is dependence on GPS of many solutions that causes the problem. So I will use the example of railway network. So this is our like car navigation, but the number of equipment, of hardware and controllers that use it is beyond our possibility of digesting it. And the breakthrough revolution is the period where we live in. The systems that were independent before are now interdependent, so they form a domino blocks that may cause the total destruction when you start it. Poland signaled many years ago that those dangers are present, and the financial market were the first that were so sometimes the purchases that are made on the stock market, you see it in the sector table. So those of you that are interested in the EU directive, well, the table is from the European Space Agency. I got it from the Prague branch office, and is about the precision of the synchronization for the peripheral systems. It doesn't mean that when you exceed this parameter that there is a fail. Sometimes it takes more time. So if the time should be considered a cyber weapon, it is not that you can cause dangerous effect when you change a digit. So the attacks that we are subject to may be in place for a long time now.
GPS pojawiła się w Azji, w okolicy.
These problems, I would say that the problem of jamming interference started to appear in that region between Russia, Korea, China. These were the first cases of GPS interference. It came to Europe through the Persian Gulf, in the region of Turkey. In Europe, Norway felt it as the first country. We have very strong interferences in our region, but not as strong as to make your cell phones unusable. Of course, there is no guarantee that it's going to remain this way. Now, what can we compare this synchronization to? I guess we can compare it to a regular heartbeat. This arrhythmia of the heart, this shows how we should, the slide shows how we should treat it. If we have a small degree of arrhythmia, the synchronization, we can say the infrastructure is inefficient, perhaps. Certain parameters will fall, the speed of transmission, radio transmission, also logical. Also, I'm talking about bands and fiber optics, perhaps service clusters whose operational capability was designed for a specific number of service processors will lower the computational capability because of asynchronicity. I also warn those who have really trusted very strong archival systems, especially large banking systems, database systems. In such systems, the data is fundamental because these systems have to archive everything during night. If one of the clusters doesn't end archiving the backup, perhaps these backups will be incomplete. And of course, nothing will happen at that time, only the next day when there will be a breakdown which will require recreating the data. The data will not be there or it will be incomplete. The topic we are dealing with is much wider than what you actually encounter in the media. In the mass media, we analyze, we think about cyber attacks called time synchronization attack, starting from the time of creating time, and we're talking about, let's say, GPS time, which was created a bit before in U.S. naval laboratory. In case of the Chinese satellite system, is the Chinese meteorology that's responsible for the time. Same when it comes to the Russian system. But in case of the European system, there is a few labs which create the time scale of Galileo. Poland also has its own 2 time scales which are registered IBPN. We have in the room the representative of that governmental agency who can tell you about the role of that during the break, perhaps. What's important, however, what we should remember is that the national timescales do not depend on satellite systems. They constitute great alternative time sources for IT systems. For example, when there is a GPS over Poland, it will be totally turned off or totally interfered with, totally jammed. Since December 10th, by a coincidence, I suppose, it turns out we have a system in Poland called eChas.pl, eTime.pl. It is registered in the main governmental agency. Everybody can use that system. That system was started on the 20th anniversary of the Act on Official Time. Poland was one of the first countries to regulate the definition of official time. Unfortunately, we didn't quite have the executive regulations and technical capabilities of distributing that time. So the project eChas allows to join in those critical infrastructure which are isolated from the internet. They can draw the signal from the agency. A certain innovation in relation to American or British solutions is the fact that the agency, the central agency, can also monitor remotely the time settings on remote servers. Of course, we can't talk about alternative solutions without realizing of whether we are under attack and whether the attack, how intensive is the attack. That's why I'd like to tell you that we do have Polish solutions which can monitor signal quality. There is a few of them. We have a stationary solutions which is proposed by ELPROMA. It's called Argos. There is also a solution created by the Institute of Communications. It's a mobile solution which also offers the possibility of jamming signals, but you will hear more about it from the authors of the system. The Argos system is a dense mapping system. In other words, it can be placed on telecommunications BTSs, in meteorological data points, and it will show the quality of signal in any location. Of course, interference will have impact on the quality of the signal, but we're also interested in a number of other phenomena which affect the interference of very weak signals which come to the Earth, which come from satellites which are 20,000 kilometers over our head. There is a very weak reception here, even though the signals are very evenly distributed. Last slide, we've received an award from the hands of the minister during a meeting of the PW Cyber Group in Katowice. It's the Argos system which monitors interference, which detects them and alarms in real time about jamming, about GPS spoofing. During that meeting, it was underline that it appeared at the right time and place. It's quite rare that we can kind of on an ongoing basis preventively enter the market. It's an open architecture system. What does it mean? Well, it means that right here from this stage, I'd like to invite everybody interested in cooperation to work on developing the system. We're talking about the systems which measures, monitors, and alarms about the signals in real time, but can't really tell you much about trends. In other words, about predictability of what might happen in a minute. Is that possible at all? Well, here AI comes in, and the issues of having deeper understanding of physics, of microwaves, their dependability on various phenomena. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Tomasz. I would like to invite you to take part in a short conversation we will have. Perhaps there are some questions. I can see there is one. Please introduce yourself. Wojciech Gołębiowski, I represent Exantel. You've mentioned local time sources in Europe, in the United States, and other countries. Now, do they synchronize between each other? Are these means of synchronization also? They can also be attacked. If you could ask the question once again, we have certain acoustics problem. Everything okay? Okay, good. So, please stand closer to the main speaker. We will hear it much better. The question dealt with the synchronization of the best system, of the biggest systems, the European. I was asking whether the sources of time, American, British, etc., European, do they synchronize with each other, and whether this synchronization can be attacked? Well, each laboratory, as I've said, develops its own time, so it's asynchronous. But of course, there is a place which coordinates their work. It's the French BPN in Sèvres, near Paris. All these laboratories send data from the atomic clocks to that place. This is where corrections are prepared, which in fact define what sort of corrections should be made in the future to receive concrete parameters of the time scale. I'm not sure if I've answered your questions. There is no direct connections. Such experiments only take place in Europe, because in Europe we have a lot of fiber optics. We have good fiber optic infrastructure. And here I have to congratulate my colleagues from PICTIME, with whom we create consortium. We have instruments which allow us to join these atomic clocks directly and compare. Before we had these techniques of direct comparison, the only techniques of comparison, of direct comparison, was the satellite system. Such methods as common view, the methods of shared observation, of receiving a signal from a single or a group of satellites, a single satellite or a group of satellites. So it's not that these labs are sort of interconnected strongly. However, if some laboratory is starting to kind of float off, as we like to call it, its scale is going off the charts, then BPN sends a warning and calls for corrections. And such events do take place. I'm not sure if you remember, to 2019, we have an incident connected with the problem note as GPS weak number all over. Perhaps nothing happened on our clocks, but there were places that time increased, not by second, but by 19 years. And that was a huge problem. When you're fighting for nanopeak or femtoseconds, then, of course, meteorological institutions were the first victim of all of that, but they did handle it quite well, rather quickly. Thank you very much, Tomasz. Thank you.